Alright, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about carrying stuff on bikes and all the different ways you can do it, the pros, the cons, and how they compare. Hopefully by the end of it you can decide what's best for you. Let's get into it. This is all the stuff that we'll be covering today. I know it's not everything, but I don't have everything either, so it should still give you enough information to hopefully fill those gaps. Alright, first up is a trusty backpack. You probably used one of these before, but it's also going to be our control as well. We've got a bottle in there, 1.5 liters, and also got a socket set, probably around 3 kilos, and then just a locking cable, always carrying that, so about half a kilo, so we're going to say 5 kilos all up. The backpack is great for grab and go, chuck all your stuff in. You don't really have to worry about it. It's all zipped up, nothing's going to fall out, and it probably fits most things, maybe fit one bag of groceries in there. I'd say when you're riding with a backpack on, it feels pretty natural, so it's not going to affect your steering too much unless you have something super awkward in there. And then when you're getting off your bike or locking up your bike, your backpack's already with you, so you don't have to worry about it. And then the cons would be if you have something awkward in there, it can get super uncomfortable if you're riding for a long period of time, like stuff poking into your back, or maybe if the weight's heavy, it wears on your shoulders a bit. And then the other main thing that is bad for it, I'd say, is you get a sweaty back, and yeah, no one wants that. Next up is a stem bag, and what I like about it is it's right there in front of you. Easy access, you can put your phone, your keys, your water bottle in there, and you don't have to worry about it, you can see it the whole time. You can also move it from different sides of the bike, so left or right, or you can move it in front of your handlebars as well. Just multiple positions, whatever fits you. I would say the bad thing about it is it only carries so much. I put a 1.5 litre bottle in there. You can see it just fits, but I think anything that's too heavy is going to start to bang around. And then the other thing that you need to just take note of is if it's too big or too close, it can also hit your knees. So yeah, just watch out for that. And then when you're locking up, depending on where you live, you got to decide whether you're going to take the stem bag with you or not, so that takes a little bit of effort as well. Alright, next up is the popular front basket. I think it's very handy to have. You can just chuck stuff in the front and you can always see it, you know it's secure, or if it's falling out, you also know. You can carry a decent amount of weight. I put my backpack in there, it's 5 kilos. I've carried more stuff before, like wheels and a skateboard and stuff like that. Also, when you go to lock up, you can just take your bag out, no issues there, and probably no one's going to steal your front rack, I think, or it's less likely. Handling wise, I'd say it's pretty decent. If you don't load it up too much, it's not too bad. If you load it up a lot, it's going to swirl around a lot, just because the weight is a little bit higher up as well compared to a cargo fork. Same with you getting off a bike. If you have a heavy load in there, you just got to be careful that the handlebars are going to dip to one side if the load is heavy. And then the last thing I'd say is you'll have to install it. So I think most people could do it, but you might need some tools here and there. And then here you can see you can pop up a curb pretty easily, even with 5 kilos in the front, and then going down with the big wheel, not bad at all. Alright, next up is a rear pannier, or a bike bag. Basically it's like a backpack on your back rack. You just hook it up with straps and you can chuck all the stuff in. Carries a similar load. You might be able to carry a little bit more with this one, depending on the bag that you have, but it's pretty secure overall, and once you lock it in, you don't really have to worry about it. Handling wise, it feels pretty good because the weight's on the back, so it's not affecting your steering at all. If anything, I think you're probably slightly slower when you're taking off because the weight is on the back wheel, but yeah, not too bad at all. Another good thing is once you strap it on, you don't really have to worry about it, especially if you got an older bag. I don't think panna bags people really try to steal that much. And for the panna rack, you can put 2 bags on each side, so you literally can carry double the load. And because the weight is a little bit lower to the ground, it feels more stable as well. And the cons, I'd say if you only have a bag on one side, it can tilt your bike over a little bit depending on how much you put in the back. Another thing is that you can't really see behind you what's in the bag, so if you have a breadstick popping out or something, it might fall out and you might not notice, or if a strap gets caught in the wheel, you won't be able to see that coming. And then last thing, while people might not steal your bags, people might look inside it or be curious to see what's inside if you have it locked up somewhere. Riding down the curb, I think it's a little bit harder to handle the weight on the back to kind of control it compared to the front where you can use your arms. You're only really using your legs on the back or the brakes. And then going up a curb, depends on how much weight you have, it's going to be hard to lift the back. What you can also do is just put your front wheel up and then ride up the curb. That should make it a bit easier. Alright, next up is the cross cargo fork. You can carry a lot of stuff with this. This is the main benefit. You can see the wheel is small in the front, so you can carry more load vertically high as well. Having the load in front, again, you're going to get that benefit of seeing all your stuff. If you need to put a hand on it, you can put a hand on it. If something tries to fall out, you can try to save it or stop. You will be able to see it. You're also not limited by how much height you stack on this. You can stack all the way over the handlebars if you want, and it can carry a pretty heavy load. I definitely can carry 2 bags of groceries on this, 2 bags, and definitely other stuff as well. Another good thing about it is the size. It keeps it almost the same size as a normal bike. So if you want to lock it up your house or apartment, it doesn't take up too much room, and also if you need to get in elevators, it will fit pretty easily. When you lock it up, no one's really going to be stealing this front rack, so nothing to worry about since it's integrated into your bike already. Handling wise, I'd say it handles really well, feels really nimble, just kind of like a normal bike because it's coming straight from the steerer. If you load it up with the same weight as you would load a normal basket, it handles super well, really responsive. I think having the weight lower helps a little bit with the steering. And if you're like me, because there's a cargo fork, you tend to load tons of weight on there. So yeah, just got to be careful that the heavier load on there, the more it's going to flop from side to side, something that you got to be careful of. And I think that's just natural being a smaller wheel and bigger weight on the front. It's also one of the things that happens when you have the weight tied to the steering as well. There's nothing from stopping it from going side to side. And that's also something to consider when you're loading up the bike as well. You really need a stand for this one, I think. One thing people don't really talk about is having weight on a smaller wheel actually makes it more bumpy in comparison to a bigger wheel. The trade-off is that you get more room to put on cargo and the weight is a little lower to the ground. Alright, next up is the Monopole cargo bike, probably mid-size, and it has a 24-inch wheel on the back, 20 on the front, and one of the main benefits is it can carry a lot of stuff. It's spec'd to 30 kilos, so you can carry 6 of those backpacks. I've carried wheels, bike parts, groceries, cases of beer, and yeah, no issues at all. The reason why it's so solid is because the weight is on the frame of the bike, and that makes it feel super stable. You don't really get that floppy feeling as much with the wheelbase being a bit longer as well. And from what I've ridden so far, the frame feels super solid, doesn't feel like it's going to break or anything, there's no flex to it. Handling wise, feels really smooth, even with tons of weight on there, you feel super stable, definitely gives you confidence in carrying tons of stuff. I would say it doesn't feel like a normal bike, unlike the cross cargo bike, the wheel is in front, so you get a little bit of a longer wheelbase and it feels like a longer bike in general, but still with the smaller wheels feels pretty whippy. When loading it up from stationary, I had it without a stand before and it was kind of a little bit cumbersome. You definitely need a stand for this bike, I think. Once you have the stand, it's really good though. When you put groceries on, it doesn't really flop to either side because it's part of the frame. Alright, and the cons is, I would say you have the same cons as the smaller wheel con, where rolling over stuff is a little bit more bumpy in general. But again, you're trading off with having more space on the front. And then another con is it does feel heavier than a normal bike and the cross cargo fork. It is a bigger frame and the tubes are bigger, so it is going to weigh more. But again, you're trading more for strength and space. And for locking up, it is a good looking bike, so it's going to attract more attention. People really don't talk about on these type of cargo bikes with the steering, it actually eats into your cargo space. So unlike the cross fork where you turn handlebars, the crate goes with it. This actually starts to cut in the front, as you can see. I will probably rotate the crate 9 degrees, but it's good to know that you can't butt things up all the way to the handlebars on these cargo bikes without affecting the turning. When going up curbs, you can see when I lift it, the weight's on the front, so even the back wheel lifts, I'm just lifting up by the handlebar. So that's the way to get up curb. Alternatively, you can just lift the front, just like that. You can pop the front up to ride up the curb, but it takes a little bit more effort. And riding down, you can see the bump on the smaller wheel. Not too bad though. Alright, last but not least is the Extra Cycle. I guess you would call this a long tail bike. So the weight limit on this for rider plus the cargo on the back is 350 pounds. That's around 160 kilos. I've carried a full shop plus a case of beer plus a kit on the back, and it does handle fairly decent for that amount of weight. So yeah, compared to the monopole, it can definitely carry a lot more. I've also carried 2 people on the back, and yeah, it does get pretty squirrely, but it's definitely doable as well. In my opinion, I think carrying people on the back is way more stable than carrying people in the front. The main benefit being the people in the back can put their feet down when you come to a stop. Handling wise, this feels way more closer to a normal bike because the steering is unchanged. It just feels like the bike's a little bit longer, but still pretty nimble in my opinion. Alright, so the cons for this is all the stuff's at the back, so if once again you can't see it, it flies off. If a strap's undone, you won't know till something happens. And another con is it's a bit longer than normal. It's longer than the monopole, so I can get it into an elevator, but you gotta turn the front wheel and it's a little bit of a squash, which also matters if you need to store it somewhere as well. You might not have the space for it. To install it, it does take a little bit of effort. I made a video on it, but yeah, it takes a little bit more effort than you think. And if you need to change out the back tire or service it somehow, it can be a little bit fussy as well. And then the last thing is weight. It is a bigger bike, but I think the only really weight issues is if you need to lift the bike to turn corners or you're in a tight hallway or something. But yeah, other than that, not too bad. And then lifting up off a curb, I'd say it's actually easier than lifting up the monopole just because there's more weighted at the back. And then riding off a curb, you really feel it. I don't really ride off too many curbs with this bike. You might be asking yourself, what's the right thing for me? I can't give you the answer, but you should consider these things. First up is usage. So what are you using this for? Are you using it to carry groceries? Are you just commuting to work? Or a job that requires you to carry stuff all the time? Next up is storage. Where are you going to store your bike? Do you have room for it? Consider what can be installed on your bike, or if you have additional bikes, make sure they're not overlapping in their usage. Do you own a car, or is it a car replacement? This will affect what you carry tremendously. How fit are you? Do you need an e-bike option? Your mechanical skills, do you have the ability to put something together or do regular maintenance? And then last but not least is cost. What can you afford and how much do you want to invest into it? If you sit down and think about these points, it will definitely help you decide what you need to get. Alright, it was quite hard to make comparison, but here is a little chart to help you decide. First up is stem bag. It's not going to affect your ride that much, so it'll be pretty fast. Backpack, again, it might be a little bit heavy on your back, so it made it a little bit slower. You can carry a bit more. Front basket is still going to be pretty fast, but having the weight on the front is going to be a little bit slower than the backpack. Rear panners, I'm doing 2 panners, so you're going to carry a lot more, and it's going to slow you down a little bit even more, but you'll be able to carry more stuff. Cargo fork, obviously it can carry a lot more than rear panners. I want to say it's about the same speed because you have the bigger back wheel. And then the cargo bike with the front load, I'd say you can carry a lot more, it's a lot stronger, but it is going to be a little bit slower because it's heavier and bigger. And then the cargo bike rear load, the biggest, it's going to be the slowest because it's the biggest, but it can carry the most for sure. And then if you convert these to e-kits to make a super bike, these will be a lot faster and strong at the same time. Alright, thanks for watching. Let me know what's your favorite, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.